Hi, welcome to Sabbath School Daily, where we have been studying from this lesson right here, God's Mission, My Mission. This week we're studying from lesson number 10, which has the title, Mission to the Unreached, Part 1, and today is Monday's lesson, which has the title, Paul in the Areopagus. Earlier this year, my wife and myself had the privilege of going to Greece and to Turkey to visit the locations of the 7 churches that are mentioned in Revelation. It was a very incredible experience. We had a wonderful time. It was a beautiful country, and there's so much history that we left it wanting to stay way more. Now, one of the places that we visited was the Areopagus, also known as Mars Hill. And this is where the Apostle Paul had his whole conversation, his discussion with the philosophers that were found there. It's a fascinating story that appears in Acts chapter 17. So again, I'm going to urge you throughout this entire week, read Acts 17. When you're studying the lesson, look at the specific verses that it asks you to read, because that's the context of what you're going to be learning about in that day. Today's lesson revolves around Acts 17, verse 18 through 21. Look at what it says. Then certain Epicurean and Stoic philosophers encountered him, and some said, "What does this babbler want to say?" Others said, "He seems to be a proclaimer of foreign gods, because he preached to them Jesus and the resurrection." And they took him and brought him to the Areopagus, saying, "May we know what this new doctrine is of which you speak? For you are bringing some strange things to our ears. Therefore, we want to know what these things mean." For all the Athenians and the foreigners who were there spent their time in nothing else but either to tell or to hear something new. So this was part of the culture of that city. They would converse, have dialogues, have monologues about different ideas, different philosophies. Here, for example, we hear about 2 distinct philosophical groups, the Epicureans and the Stoics. The Epicureans were a group of philosophers that were basically founded in 4 BC. This is a group of men that talked about and that emphasized the pursuit of pleasure, more specifically, moderate pleasure, the small pleasures of life, and that provided happiness. That's how they derived their joy in life. The Stoics were a group of very disciplined people. They believed in self-control and in moderation. That's basically what their entire philosophy was about. Of course, there's a lot more to it than that, and if you'd like to understand more what Paul was up against, I encourage you to study a little bit more on who these different groups were. But basically, they were from the 4th and 3rd century BC, and they guided their lives through these philosophies of moderation, of the search for pleasure, for happiness, and so on and so forth. And so here, Paul is speaking to this group of men. They spent their days talking to each other, debating with each other. And here Paul is brought to satisfy their curiosity about what he's talking about. The reason why this is such a high moment in Paul's ministry is because these were extremely intelligent men. They weren't Christian, they weren't Jewish, but they were extremely intelligent. For centuries, Athens had been considered the center of intellectual academic growth. This is where people would debate new ideas, new understandings. And so here, Paul, he wasn't up against the Jews, the Christians. He wasn't up against people who knew where he was coming from. This was absolutely groundbreaking in the context of the 1st century church, in the context of even Judaism. And that's what Paul was in Athens to do. Look at what the last paragraph of today's lesson says. In Athens, Paul had expected that the Holy Spirit could use his knowledge and oratorical skills, which he had gained in his education under Gamaliel. But in reality, it was Paul's education on the streets of Athens that the Holy Spirit was able to use even more. Then the lesson quotes the book, The Acts of the Apostles, page 237, that says, "The wisest of his hearers were astonished as they listened to his reasoning. He showed himself familiar with their works of art, their literature, and their religion." So, do you see how important it is to know about the people that you're ministering to? How important it is to understand where they're at? I feel that so many times we only want to dish out what we know. We want to dish out our theology, our knowledge of the Bible, our God, our religion. Now, friends, I'm not saying that we believe, that we agree, that we are going to cede any bit of truth when it comes to any other religion or any other faith. But what we do have to do is find some common ground. After all, these are human beings. These are people that the Lord wants to save. And so if you only want to speak without hearing, without understanding, without connecting with people, it's very likely that you won't be able to connect with anyone. That's what we see the apostle doing here. He waits, he mingles, he listens, he hears, he's well-versed in their literature, well-versed in their customs and traditions, and that's why these men gave him the time of day. These weren't just regular people. These were extremely intelligent, deep philosophical scholars, and yet they gave Paul the time of day to share with them his beliefs. Why? Because he knew them. He was able to connect with them. At least on a basic level, on a foundational level, he was able to connect with them as a human being. And so I feel that that's what we have to do as well. Be able to connect with people, be able to listen to them, know who they are, know where they're coming from, know what their culture and their traditions are. At that point, you'll be able to reach them. Continue studying the lesson. This week is promising to be a great one. Read Acts chapter 17, especially the verses that are mentioned each day. That will give you the context of what we're talking about. Also, comment down below with any questions or any comments. I'd love to interact with you. And please remember to share, to like, and to subscribe to our videos. We release one every day. And I hope to see you in here tomorrow for another Sabbath School Daily.